All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Life Between the Sticks, as always with Cody Cropper and the host, Brandon. We're back. We're inching our way closer to MLS Pre-Season. Some of the preseason matches have been announced. But what you and I were kind of talking about this before we get into it is that it's a little less settled right now, right? Rosters with the World Cup and stuff. It sounds like there's still a lot of gaps in rosters. You're still seeing a lot of movement much later than you normally would. I guess, like, based on you and talking to your friends and things like that, like, how is it going for these teams in building rosters right now?
I mean, it's a stressful time period. Obviously, myself and a plethora of other, MLS players are still unsigned, and it's very difficult, or it can be difficult depending on the person and how they are able to handle it. But from a league perspective and a team's perspective, I think teams are simply stepping into preseason with the understanding that they have the opportunity to figure out what they need because every other team is doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, well, that is true. And obviously with the back and forth, like I said, again, a World Cup, maybe best poised, maybe not, for the MLS since they start their season, in was it the end of February when they kick off?
Yeah, I believe
March
so, yeah.
at least. And so it's definitely proven to shake things up quite a bit. So again, I guess it's just interesting seeing a lot of moves and changes still happening. People getting signed, players going, from MLS team to other MLS team. Rooney doubling down on the goalkeepers out there in DC United. Because I think you're trying to see, I guess, are you starting to see the teams that are making moves and kind of understanding like their strategy or concepts they're going for? I mean, do you feel like the teams that are at the bottom of the league are actually trying to go for it? Or are they just kind of comfortable being mediocre? You've got new teams coming to the league. What is it, Chattanooga and St. Louis?
Yeah, so I mean, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit of everything. You obviously see, a team like DC, who historically has been one of those teams that's been around for years and years, and they've always competed. And now the last year or 2 years, they've really struggled, and you have seen them this offseason make roster moves that kind of took people by surprise, and then they went out and they signed 2 established goalkeepers in the league. They went out and signed Mateus Klick. Last year they brought in the midfielder who used to play for West Ham. His name just left my mind.
Don't worry, I'll look it up as you keep going.
But and then you're seeing St. Louis, who was competing in MLS Next last year, having signed Roman Berkey. Now they're going out and they're signing MLS veterans to go along with the plethora of young players that they have under contract.
Ravel Morrison,
that was it.
Fergie had some pretty big words for him. Just didn't quite
didn't
fill his
quite
potential.
Yeah, he played at West Ham, played at Man United.
All over.
But, it's interesting to see because every team is taking a different approach. And it's, you look at a Vancouver Whitecaps, they have an influx of young players, of young talent. And you look at a team like the New England Revolution, where they have, under Bruce, been more of a veterans group of players. And all of this is very interesting because there is a wide variety of free agents still out there. And I think it's interesting to see how teams are starting to pick and choose which players they sign. And obviously, as one of those free agents, it's very difficult when you see a goalkeeper get signed at a team that you thought was a possibility. And I'm sure it's the same for everybody else.
For sure. I mean, look, Philly was top of the East, then Montreal, New York City, New York Red Bulls. On the western side, it was LAFC, obviously won it all. Austin, then Dallas, then LA Galaxy, kind of on the west. The bottom side of the East, The bottom three were Chicago, Toronto, and DC. Mentioned DC United with Wayne Rooney, and really trying to figure out what they're doing there. And then Kansas City, Houston, and San Jose were the bottom three teams with the Western Conference, which is a little bit interesting because, Kansas City has kind of had a good run of it until late. But they had, massive injuries?
They had massive injuries. I think 2 of their 3 designated players were injured the entire season. You look at Toronto. Toronto struggled at the start of last season, came on strong at the end after they were able to acquire Insigne and
Chiellini? No, he went to LA.
He went to LA.
Everyone goes to LA.
Everybody. It's either Toronto or LA.
Must be nice.
They're another
Bernadeschi.
After they acquired those 2 players, they really came on strong and made a push. And
weird.
It's weird how that works.
Good players means good results.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things where teams are starting to realize the players that they need, and as they get into preseason, as they get their feet wet in preseason matchups, I believe that more free agents will come off that list.
Gonna have to, and heaven forbid you get injuries in preseason, injuries in the beginning of the season. It's a time where the doors are really still open, and trying to figure everything out. So, I think that, I'll be watching a little bit more. The Messi watch is off. He's obviously still at PSG. They want to extend him. Could he come in the middle of the season? Word that he's going to get ownership in Miami, with Beckham. That would obviously be.
Isn't there also a rumor that a team from the same league that Ronaldo signed in is offering him an exorbitant amount of money to go there as well? I think it was $450 million a year to go and play there.
It's just unnecessary.
It is.
Either way, he's going to be set forever, whether or not he comes to MLS and has ownership in that versus taking $450 million. That is on top of everything else he's earned is insane. Before I get to the one big change with Apple TV and MLS broadcasting, I did want to give you a time to shout out Owen. We've talked about them a couple times. They're your go-to protein provider.
They are. Owen, Smooth Vanilla, one of my favorites, one of my wife's favorites. It is, 100% plant-based nutrition. It has a greens blend inside, essential amino acids, and probiotics. It's honestly only what you need. Use Cody C20 for 20% off your first order.
Link in the description. Preseason. So they announced the preseason schedule and results about a week ago. Atlanta United, Chattanooga FC, Austin versus Philly Union, Charlotte versus St. Louis City SC, Chicago, they're playing Cancun FC. Sometimes they play USL teams. Obviously, sometimes they play, teams from Mexico and all over. How do you guys look at preseason games? I know Minnesota United just beat New York FC, New York City FC, NYCFC. Is it just about minutes? Do you guys go deep in the bench? Are you there just to get fitness, or are you really trying to implement tactics from day one? I guess kind of give us a general overview on preseason matches and their importance or lack thereof for the rest of the season.
I think as a goalkeeper, the opportunity to play in those preseason games is massive because it gives you an opportunity as a 1, a 2, a 3 to get minutes and to, push yourself up the ladder. From a team perspective, it is an opportunity to step into these games and begin to implement everything that you've been working on to that point in preseason, as well as get your legs underneath you and prepare for the start of the season.
Do you get the playbook? Do you get the system? Do you guys like day one chalk talk, kind of walk through what the expectations are, what the play style is, things like that?
Well, usually most teams will start with fitness testing in the first 2 to 3 days.
Gotta love the beep.
Yeah, I think the beep's a little. At least teams that I've been on in the recent past or in the recent years, the beep test is kind of outdated.
Oh, I thought it was just a rite of passage. It's finally left.
It has. I know some teams still use it, but once you get past those first couple days, it's fitness with the ball. It's straight line running. It's for goalkeepers, up, down, up, down, up, down. How many times can you hit the ground and get up? But once you get past those first couple of days, it is starting to build for, everything that you want to work on throughout the season, and the different formations that that the coach wants to implement.
So another thing that I find interesting here is that, for example, DC United, all of their games are open to the public. All of their preseason games are. But then you go to Colorado Rapids, and they're like, nah, everything is behind closed doors. You don't have the option. DC's playing Charlotte, Vancouver, LAFC, and San Jose. Clearly they are actually at an invitational, so that's probably why. I guess, is that really just down to team-to-team basis? Is there really any advantage or disadvantage of playing open? You assume, all right, well, if there's people there, you're bringing in some money. But I'm sure there's got to be those paranoid coaches that are like, oh, we can't tip our hat to anything that we're going to do this season. Yeah,
I think that there are some coaches or organizations that would be like that. I know that Vancouver is competing in in an invitational in Palm Springs, which I believe 9 or 10 other teams are at.
Yeah.
So I would assume that those are going to be all the games that are open to the public. But sooner or later, your tactics, your formations, the way that you want your team to play is going to get out to the public. So in my opinion, whether it's from a team coming to scout your team or a team passing their
scouting report
along, it's going to be one.
Yeah.
It's going to be a thing that just kind of happens.
Or the classic guys with you in preseason gets traded at the beginning of the season, and then you have to play in week 3. And you're like, oh no, does he have our game plan? What did he tell them? He told them everything.
He told
obviously.
them everything. Yeah, it was the first call that the coach made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you step into my office and tell me everything you know about what they're going to do in week 1?
Absolutely. You have any good preseason stories?
Well,
what's the mood? I mean, is everyone tired? Are you trying to bet in with people? I know you've been on 3 different rosters in the last 4 years or something like that. What is the mood in preseason? Because you got to assume that you're away from your families, you're grinding. Do people get a little rowdy? Do people go off campus per se, or is it really strictly business?
I would say it's a little bit of everything. Obviously, you mentioned that we are away from our family, so it is very difficult. It's not only difficult for us as players to be away from our families, but it's also difficult for us to be, or for our families, us being away for such an extended period of time. That said, the mood is usually during the first week or two, very energetic. Everybody's happy to be back. It's obviously been a long off season. And then you get into week 3, week 4, where the double sessions start to hit the legs. You're tired.
The roster starts to settle. Some people aren't happy.
Exactly. You start to kind of get a feel for where you're going to be in the team, whether you're a starter, a bench player, not in the 18 or 20 man roster on a week to week basis, and it becomes a lot to handle.
Yeah. So, a big change this season is they're changing the size of the goals. No, I'm just kidding. Apple TV is coming in as broadcast partner, signed a 10-year deal with MLS starting this season. They're going to be covering MLS Leagues Cup 1 and MLS Next Pro and MLS Next matches all in one place. So it's the biggest U.S. domestic soccer bundle package that they've ever been able to do. Obviously, the streaming services are dying to get their hands on sports properties.
Yes.
MLS was probably the most obtainable of them all, especially for Apple being in the U.S.
Absolutely.
They're not, I think a bunch of Amazon paid for Thursday Night Football, and that's the lowest viewed of all the days.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a big package, and coming from, people that have been involved in the, negotiations and everything. It was kind of it was an amazing. This is an amazing deal. It's an amazing opportunity for soccer to grow in the United States. However, it was one that I think a lot of people did not see coming before it was announced.
You know, with this new deal, again, like you as a player, like, did you have any idea? Does the MLS kind of like let you guys know what's going on? And then also, like, $2.5 billion is the rumored deal, $250 million per year for global rights for the next 10 years. Again, I don't know how big the global audience is for MLS,
Right.
but yeah, any heads up that you guys got, or does it like put money in your pocket if MLS goes and negotiates a better rights deal than with ESPN?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously get a share of the revenue. That said, when we
All
renegotiate,
players, right?
Yes,
It
all
goes in
players,
kind of
and
pool.
then it gets dispersed. That said, when we renegotiated the CBA, we did not know that this deal was in the pipeline. We knew that something was in the pipeline, but as a player that is not involved on the day-to-day involvement, is not involved day-to-day.
Yeah.
I did not know that this was the deal that was in the pipeline.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, it makes sense. They don't want to tip their hat, especially you kind of mentioned that. Like, it's a little bit weird, your employer-employee relationship, and obviously they want to negotiate terms, but yet they're disclosing information from you guys that would obviously affect the financials of your deal. So it's really interesting, obviously. I do think overall Apple getting into this and this being their flagship package for sports is a good thing for MLS because they're going to push it, obviously.
Agreed.
You know, there's rumors that Apple wants to double down and take over BT Sports coverage of the Premier League because it sounds like BT's a little bit over it. They're getting fatigued on it. But I don't think that – I think, like, right now, here and now, this is good for the MLS. Apple is committed, as we said, to covering everything.
Yeah.
Beginning in 2023, all games played on Wednesday and Saturday nights. You know, unless there's a game on television will conflict with the stadium not being available, they're going to put all of the games. I think it should be easier for them to schedule because you don't have to fight with live TV on Apple. Yeah. Everything will be on demand. So it's not like ESPN is saying, MLS, you can't have a Saturday night game because we've got college football or NBA or whatever. They are going to put it on the one place they have, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Now, financials, right? We love a little bit of finance here.
We do.
When this was announced, so this article on World Soccer Talk by Christopher Harrison came out June 18th, right? At the time, Apple Plus was $4.99 a month. Mm-hmm. It is now $6.99 a month as we were about to kick off the season. That is a 75% increase in price month over month. Someone's got to pay the bills, Cody. Yep. And it sounds like the consumers are, but Apple bought it so that they could raise the price because their package is more valuable.
Absolutely.
So is this more down to Ted Lasso or are you guys in the MLS?
It's definitely down to Ted Lasso. I'm going to put all the blame on Ted Lasso. For me, from my perspective, it'll be interesting to see if players get a free subscription.
You'd think that would be an easy...
You'd think that they would, but you never know.
So one downside is that the local TV companies will be cut out of it.
Oh, really?
Yep. So if you were a team announcer and you didn't get picked up by Apple TV, you are unfortunately out of a job. So there's going to be layoffs across the production side of the community. But, you know, again, what they're getting is potentially bigger bang for their buck, which is what MLS has to do. I mean, I think we'll kind of see. We'll talk about it later. There's like a leaked memo about what all the MLS teams are going to be required to do from a content production standpoint.
Yes.
It sounds like a ton. But more importantly, I think we should just talk about the team that they're bringing out to do the coverage. They've got, obviously, in studio. They've got color commentary. They've got play-by-play. And it's all going to be under the MLS Season Pass or with Apple TV. Before I get into names, like, do you guys even care who's commentating on games? Does it affect you guys?
No, it doesn't impact us, no. But I would say that when it is an not so liked commentator and we are watching other teams play, it is quite annoying.
So
That said, it doesn't it doesn't change how we view the game or how we watch the game, at least for me.
when you get your film packages, do you get the broadcast or do you guys have your own cameras in the stadium?
Own cameras in the stadium.
So it's just mute or like sounds from the crowd and stuff?
It's usually just mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just sit there in silence watching your film.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially, yes.
I would recommend this podcast to all of your teammates across the league. Give yourself something to do while you're watching dead silence. Hopefully they're positive clips.
Just listen to us. It's okay.
All right, some interesting names and then some not interesting names, some no surprises. I think the first one, Taylor Twellman, leaving ESPN to come over to Apple TV was the most obvious thing ever. That was like the only thing he did at ESPN when they lost MLS. It was just a matter of time until he was
absolutely.
gone. So
I would agree.
He made the jump. Throwback, Marcelo Balboa.
Oh, that is digging into the history books right there.
For sure. I hope he still has the pony. Marie Sadu, Sasha Kleshchin, Sebastian Letou, Lori Lindsay, Danielle Slayton, Kendra de St. Aubin, Taylor Twellman, like I said, Diego Valeri, and Bradley Wright Phillips. A ton of MLS connections there. You would assume these are all going to be pro MLS, proud to be talking about MLS, and you would hope, and this is what you always want, they're going to be able to give you some insight that the average person isn't going to know.
Absolutely.
Diego Valeri, I'm excited to see that one.
I'm very
Bradley
excited
Wright Phillips,
because I've heard great things about both Diego Valeri and Bradley Wright Phillips, and I really hope that they're able to transition into this role, because I think that they were both great players, and from everything that I've heard from former teammates of theirs, they are great people and very knowledgeable. So hopefully they're able to help this transition in this package.
Yeah. And then Sebastian Letou, a 10-year veteran, spent most of his career at Philly, I believe.
I think DC.
At least the end, he was at Phillies where he ended. But yeah, and so I think if I'm looking at it from a fan perspective, you're looking from a player's perspective, I'm actually pretty impressed, or happy at least, with the decisions that they made. I don't think they went all your classic commentators and media people. I think they got some good advice.
Yes.
Maybe they talked to fans. I don't know. Or they hired the right people who are making the right decisions. I do think this is a 10-year plan.
Yep.
If you were to give these people 3-4 year contracts and renew on a rolling basis as needed, they're going to grow with the content and the league.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be a very interesting 10 years to watch soccer and watch these commentators grow with the league.
Yeah, exactly. And they grew up in the league, now they're going to take that next step into it. And then probably, in 10, 15 years, I'll be running U.S. Soccer because that's the evolution.
Yeah. The old boys club.
Studio hosts
and girls club.
Yeah, studio hosts are Tony Churchy, Liam McHugh, and Jillian Sokovitz. Play-by-play, Max Bretos, obviously a really well-known name in U.S. Soccer. Steve Cangiolosi, Frederick Lord, Pablo Ramirez, Jake Zivin.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't know any of those people, so I don't have any input on that.
But again, I think that if you kind of look across Fox, CBS obviously has Champions League. ESPN really doesn't have much anymore. They've got some FA Cup stuff.
Yep.
I would say I really like CBS's coverage.
Yeah.
And like you said, or like I said earlier, I'm really happy with the grassroots approach that Apple's taking with this. And I'm going to give them a pass on the first year just so they can kind of get their bearings, because I do think over 10 years, Apple has done an amazing job with like everything they've touched, more or less.
Absolutely.
I think this is a really cool opportunity that they are going to just blow it out of the water with MLS coverage.
I agree. I think that they will do an amazing job, and they, as you just said, they have done an incredible job with just about everything that they've touched. So it's only a matter of time before this kind of hits the ground and they begin to, climb the ladder.
Yeah. Again, the more that the brand and the value of the league goes up, the better the players are going to come, the more resources they're going to be. And again, the teams can go sell better sponsorship packages thanks to the league selling a better media deal, broadcast
Absolutely.
deal. So it all works out. We'll see. But I think this is a huge positive for the league and for the fans.
I agree.
All right, more to come on that. All right, lastly, January camp for the U.S. men's national team has been announced. Obviously, there's a lot of dust up during the World Cup, after the World Cup with Berhalter and the Reina family and this and that. But at the end of the day, time keeps moving and rosters are announced. So 24 players called for the U.S. men's national team BioSteel January training camp to kick off 2026.
It's sponsored this year.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
2026 FIFA World Cup cycle. We're already talking about 2026. It never ceases. As you guys know, there's a bit of a change at the helm. Anthony Hudson is going to lead training. He was an assistant coach. And then fellow World Cup assistant BJ Callahan and U20 men's youth national team head coach Mikey Varas will serve as his assistants. So not really surprised. Those are the guys that have been in and around it. You're going to put them with the group. So roster, Roman Celentano from FC Cincy in goal with Sean Johnson, who's a free agent, and Gaga Slonina from a big club in London named Chelsea.
Yes.
He is coming back over for that. So 3 goalkeepers in camp, 8 defenders. Jonathan Goman from Real Sociedad, Julian Gressel from Vancouver, DeJuan Jones from Revolution, Aaron Long from LAFC, Jalen Neal from the Galaxy, Sam Rogers from Rosenborg in Norway, Jean Tolkien from New York, Walker Zimmerman from Nashville. We'll stop there because I would hate to read every single player at this point in succession. Start with the goalkeepers. Roman, Sean, Gaga, thoughts?
I think all played very well last year in the MLS. And obviously Gaga got his
Dream move
to Chelsea. Okay, yeah, sure. Sean's a free agent, and Celentano is, a very talented young goalkeeper and did extremely well for FC Cincinnati last year.
So do you know with Celentano, has he committed his national team future, or is this one of those games where you're still trying to see if he has options where he's going to go?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if he has dual citizenship.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. I know sometimes these are those games you play
Yeah,
because you can bring him into camp.
Yep, you can bring him into camp, and they can, kind of get their feet wet and see what they want to do.
What about defenders? Again, Jonathan Gomez, Julian Gressel.
I think it's an amazing first opportunity for Julian. Obviously, he was a teammate of mine in Vancouver, and I think it's one that he, having been German-born, played in the U.S. for the last 7 to 8 years, finally gets his citizenship late in 2022. I think it's something that he deserves. He's been one of the best right backs, right wing backs, right wingers in the league over the last 5 to 6 years, and for me, this is something that I believe he truly deserves. So
nice.
Congratulations to him.
You got DeJuan Jones from New England, Aaron Long, Jalen Neal, Sam Rogers, John Tolkien, Walker. Obviously, Zim's going to be there.
Yeah, Walker's obviously going to be there. Obviously, Aaron's going to be there as well. Both very strong, mature center backs and very experienced center backs. Other than that, I think it's kind of just an opportunity for coaches to get a look at some of these guys that maybe they didn't have the opportunity to look at before the World Cup.
Yeah.
And now they're going to kind of bring them into the fold as the older players take the helm, or I guess this last cycle kind of takes the helm, and they're going to bring these guys in underneath them to push them into performing for a 2026 World Cup, which is shocking that we're talking about that already. But
correct. Obviously, a lot of domestic players. Paxton Aronson obviously just left MLS to go to Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany. He's in for the midfield. Kellen Acosta, Aiden Morris, Paxton Pomykal, Alan Sonora, who's unattached, and then Eric Williamson from Portland.
Yeah, again, a lot of very talented players. I think Eric Williamson did a fantastic job in the midfield for Portland this past year. Really filled a role that has kind of been missing since, I don't want to say similar position, but since Diego left, their midfield has not been the same, and I think Eric kind of stepped in and help them solidify that midfield position that Diego left.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that they are the same type of player, but
Yeah.
Just helped to fill that role and did a very good job at it. And I think he also deserves this national team call-up.
Love this. So 8 defenders, 6 midfielders, and 7 forwards.
7 forwards.
Which forwards is, it's more of an attackers these days. There's a little bit of gray area.
It is, and it's something that the U.S. needs to look at going into the next World Cup.
Paul Arriola, FC Dallas. Cade Cowell, San Jose Earthquakes. Jesus Ferreira, FC Dallas. Matthew Hoppy, Middlesbrough. Emmanuel Sabi from Odense in Denmark. Brandon Vasquez from FC Cincy. Alejandro Zendejas from Club America in Mexico.
The big one for me is Brandon Vasquez. Obviously, he was, in my opinion, one of the most in-form strikers in MLS last year. I think a lot of people would agree with that. I was kind of shocked that he wasn't in the conversation to go to the World Cup. I know it would have been a last-minute ad, but we've seen it happen with other countries. So I figured that maybe it was a discussion, but that being said, I'm glad that he's finally getting the call-up that he deserves after his 2022 season.
So, back to LA. They're going to be playing Serbia and Colombia. So they've already played, I guess on the 15th, they played Serbia, and then they play Colombia as well, I guess, going forward. But I guess my question, you've done a January camp in a non-World Cup year, right? Like, the U.S. soccer website's talking about how, 30 players that have been in the first January camp of a qualifying cycle have gone on to be on the roster. They're like 9 from the January camp leading up to Qatar made it there. There's a lot of new names on here for those people who maybe just came to U.S. men's national team during the World Cup. You don't recognize a lot of these names. So what is a January camp like, and kind of how, I guess, it's always important, right? You need to take your chance, but like, what is the mood like and the vibe like of a January camp?
Well, it's usually pretty vibrant. People are happy to be there. Obviously, you're not with your club team, but you are in an amazing setting at world-class facilities wherever they are being hosted. I believe, as it usually is, it's in California. I would assume at the home. I don't even think it's the Home Depot Center anymore.
They're at the Bank of California Stadium.
Oh, so they changed venue.
Mm-hmm.
That's where their games are at. They usually train.
And then they went to Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California.
Yep, that's
the next one.
That's the Galaxy training facility and stadium.
And all the BioSteel they could want.
Yes, and all the the full package of BioSteel.
Pallets.
Yeah, pallets of BioSteel. There you go. No, it's an opportunity for guys to come in, get their feet wet, an opportunity for the coaching staff to see these players and put them into situations where these guys, these young players, these unknown players are going to be tested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously a lot of domestic players, just easier right now. The European leagues are going, and I'm sure, while it's acceptable for them to pull them back, a lot of the Premier League and European leagues don't want that. They're getting ready for Champions League and stuff. It's just a bad timing. They just left for the World Cup.
Yep.
So, it is a bit weird. Obviously, Pulisic is injured right now at Chelsea, so you're not going to be seeing him for a while. But yeah, it's an opportunity for the coaching staff to get a look in a competitive environment of players that they want to see. So they're going to have to assess these players for a couple years until they really have to narrow it down and decide who is in their 30-man group, and then they have to drop it down from there, once it gets to the very end. So for those that are new to the game, you're probably going to see a revolving door, a lot of new names consistently. Yep. Just because you don't see your favorite players, like you don't have to worry about Weston, you don't have to worry about Christian, you don't have to worry about Tyler Adams, who's just named Men's National Team Player of the Year. Like, you're good. They're gonna be there.
That being said, 4 years ago you would have thought, or 2 years ago at least, you would have thought, well, you don't have to worry about Zach Steffen, you don't have to worry about certain other names, and these guys don't make the cut. And as difficult as it is for those players, it is something for just to mention, you say
For
you
sure.
don't have to worry
Yeah,
about Weston.
that's
If
fair.
Weston falls off, then Weston may not be there.
Hey,
And I'm not saying anybody fell off, but I'm just saying.
Yes, you're right. There's a lot of there's a lot of things that can happen.
Politics that come into it.
We also don't even know if Berhalter is going to be coming back or not.
We
So
don't.
a lot is up in the air. To your point, I maybe gave it a little too much confidence. So you rightly checked that. As an athlete, you clearly know that nothing is guaranteed.
That is true.
In these situations. So, all right. Well, another one down. Again, go check out Owen. Link in the description. Preseason is starting to kick off for everybody.
It is.
I know Minnesota United, where we're at, went down south to get a little
Florida.
bit warmer weather for training.
Very jealous. Very jealous. We're sitting here in a current snowstorm.
Yeah.
Snowstorm for
Yeah,
Minnesota. It's like a dusting. 3
Exactly.
inches, but still.
Better places to be, I guess,
There
when
are.
it comes to training. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed it as always. Remember, leave a question. If you're in the Spotify app, you can just drop a question right in there. It comes to us. We'll put it in the next show. Share it with a friend. We'd love to continue to get the word out there. Follow us, Instagram and TikTok. Anyways, we're out. Until next time, take care.
Peace.